science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Theoretical salutations, Cognonauts. I'm Mike. Welcome to Exofathom, the show where we dare to think about the fifth dimension, I guess. Anyways, I'm joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Nick and Ayla. Nick, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Ayla, how's it going?
Dare we do to you too?
Whoa.
I
What
was
does
thinking
that
of
mean?
a fun, I don't know, like a Yoda like salutation about us daring to exofathom. I'm good. Happy Monday.
That was a riddle. That was good. 10 out of 10.
I told a lot of bad jokes today, so I'm a little leery of my joke telling ability, but that's okay. I'll keep trying.
We understand your bad jokes here. Don't worry. If I wasn't so tired, I would laugh.
Thank you.
Oh. Well, cool. So today we're going to deal with some strange stuff, I guess, some fifth dimension, but we're going to try to build our way there. So we're going to build a model reality that encompasses 5 dimensions, and then we'll probably get lost somewhere around there and then try to circle back to string theory, which ends up being just as abstract and theoretical. So I guess I have a opening question of, is there any decision you've made at any point in your life that you've pondered if you made a different decision, how things would play out?
Absolutely. Every decision I make is plagued by the possibility of making the wrong decision. So yeah, absolutely. I've definitely have thought about it before, like what the branches of my personal space-time could have been had I chosen something differently, or like forks in the road in time.
Of course. Ayla?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny? I immediately went back to this childhood memory of when I got braces for the first time. And I was at home and I didn't know I had TMJ at the time. So, like, the braces just made things worse. And I was in a lot of pain. And I decided to hula hoop jump rope. So, you don't hula hoop, but you use the hula hoop to jump with. Anyway, I fell, of course, and my braces lodged in my kneecap, giving me like a permanent awesome scar. So I think, yeah, like there's simple regrets, but I feel like, yeah, I could definitely classify
like
several different types. Yeah.
That's like a cool war story there.
I
I
feel
am
like
pretty proud of that story, to be honest with you. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Like, why? But in my kid, like, it reminds me of the kid brain, which I've always kept with me. So I really like that.
I feel like braces in 20 years are going to be looked at like a medieval torture device.
Probably.
Honestly, I remember because I had braces, and it's like every time they tighten them, it's like the most excruciating mouth pain you could ever have. You can't eat for days, and yeah, it's awful. It's like you literally have like metal wiring in your mouth for years on end. And I had one of those
little rubber bands on
I
the
had
end.
I had the bands, and then I had the bridge across the top of my mouth.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
had this like bar that went across the top of my mouth. It was awful. It was awful.
I should have got braces because I have a pretty bad underbite. Never got them. And now I have like a disfigured smile. So I just don't show my teeth when I smile.
Now you can get
I've never
Invisalign
noticed
for like, a fraction of the cost braces are. So you're probably smarter. You can at least do it in the future and be like, yeah, now I have perfect teeth and I did it for $100.
I thought about like doing that, and then I thought to myself, well, I'm only a couple years away from needing like implants, right? Like new teeth. So, what the hell? I don't care.
Yeah, I was thinking too. Why not just pull them out and get some dentures? That seems pretty easy. At that point.
Except you lose like your
facial structure.
Yeah, which I never thought about. And I was like, that's weird. Like your teeth give your face shape. which is weird because I wonder, like, if we all had our wisdom teeth still in our faces, like, would we look totally different? I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I think that's why my upper jaw didn't grow either, because I didn't get any braces. Anyways, so we're just, like, sort of talking about regrets, right? So would you rather live in a timeline where you had, I guess, absolutely no regrets, where you made every right decision, starting at a certain fixed point? So, like, right now, you would think they were all the right decisions. Or would you live in one where they were all the wrong decisions?
Is
According
that
to your
even
point right now?
well, well, I mean, I guess it depends on whether you are personally content in that moment you're looking back, right? You know, like, because if you're sitting in the contemplation and you're still, you know, happy with you where you are, perhaps all the past decisions were the wrong ones, but it still landed you in the right place. But I would say that I would want to make the right decisions every time, at least, even if they weren't necessarily the empirically right decisions, they might be at least right for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, you know, I can never give a straight answer. I always like sweat any test because I'm like, well,
It
my
could be a
hands are
mixture of both.
sweating. Huh? Yeah,
It could be
it
a
could
mixture of,
be.
like, right and wrong decisions. It could.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking about the nature of a reality where there are no wrong decisions. Is that just for me? Is that for the whole populace? And then conversely, if there's a universe where everyone made wrong decisions, like would that even exist? Because it'd be like a contradiction in terms. But then again, that depends on, you know, whether you fundamentally think the universe is good and bad. Is there forces
Remember,
beyond us?
I
Yeah.
started off, my initial question was different decisions. You started to bring in this notion of simple regrets. So you could live in a universe where you've made you could classify all of your decisions under type A, or the other decision as type B. Would you want which one, A or B? In this case, right or wrong, quote unquote.
Wait. Okay, so a world. Wait, this is feeling like a game show where they're like, you can have behind curtain A or behind curtain B. I guess I just don't have enough information
Survey
about what the two
says.
sides.
All right. Well, what if you could live in both? You could see the outcomes of all your wrong decisions and all your right decisions all at once.
Do you
Would you want
guys?
to live in that world?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys ever do that in your head? Kind of like, you know, make alternate, you know, parallel yous that made different decisions and kind of play those out.
Not
It's kind of
really.
a fun exercise. I mean, I don't know. I like
I'm
to
both
do
of
that
you.
sometimes.
That's what I've done since, like, high school, when I, like,
Yeah.
realized that I could be anybody. I
Mhm.
could just do the same things that person did.
Yeah.
And become, in theory, that person.
I think it's a really good empathy exerciser. Being able to kind of put yourself into, I guess we say fantasy scenarios, but hypothetical scenarios. You know, at least in my experience, it's definitely helped me understand people more, and understand myself more too. Because you know, like if I'm struggling with a decision that I may have made, and wondering whether the other decision would have been better, I try to play those scenarios out in my head to their, you know, fullest execution, and evaluate, you know, whether I'm, you know, more or less content, you know. But yeah, I think it's fun. It's fun to play around with possibility and probability and all that stuff.
But in this world, you can actually, like,
Right.
you can
You'd actually
see
be able
them.
to see it. Yeah, that would be pretty fascinating.
You'd be able to jump in at any point in time, any of those decisions, while they were progressing to their end.
Like the bookcase in Interstellar. Matthew McConaughey could write me love poems from a black hole.
The dream.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen that film. I swear I have tried to watch it so many times, and there's like a point where he meets like
It's a
his
very
dad,
slow
right?
burn. It's a
I
very
just
slow
fall
burn.
asleep, and I don't mean to. I never fall asleep in movies. So I don't know. I feel like I'm destined to watch the end of that film one day. It just hasn't happened yet.
Watch it at like double speed.
Hmm.
It makes it
No,
half
but I
as
have
long.
to take it in. I have to like, soak in the vibes. I thought about that because like books, you can speed them up, but then I don't know. It just makes my brain feel faster.
So, Ayla, so you still don't? Are we still not concrete enough?
A little bit. So, okay. So the question is that you could live in a world where like where you never make a wrong decision. So it sounds like you can kind of like see the eventualities, so you're like informed at every minute.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's not like you're making empirically good decisions. It's just that you have more control over how things play out long term.
You don't have control. You
See it.
see how they play out, and you can jump in, no matter what decision you make. You're the one that's classifying
Mm,
right and wrong decisions. They're
nope, nope.
only decisions.
You know what? I know exactly now what you're talking about. You're talking about Super Hot. And no. Have you played this game?
Super
You
Hot's a
go,
good
oh,
game.
it is a good game, but the idea is that like it's a puzzle and you're trying to do the right steps every time so you don't die.
You can
But
stop time. You
yeah,
can duck around bullets. The time only
exactly.
moves when you move.
At your pace, exactly. And that's kind of what I vision when you were just describing that. And I think personally that would drive me insane because I would be like, well, what, I don't know. I think I just would be like paused. I could never make a decision. So give me the wrong ones. All the bad decisions. Like it.
Disabled by opportunity.
Yeah, it happens. You have too
Mhm.
many
Frozen.
options.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the freedom.
Yeah.
It's like in Rick and Morty when Summer's like, I thought freedom was like a Verizon choose your own plan sort of thing. But
I mean, like I could see it being cool. Like it definitely would be, but I think long term, I would probably be sadder in that reality than if I just kind of had like that blind. I mean, I don't know. The wrong reality, is it just like you don't get to see any information, or like how are you always making wrong decisions?
so imagine, so I just discovered a love of cooking at
Yay!
29. Right?
Yay!
But in this model, I would be able to go back in time and change my whole life to center around cooking, let's just say, and then play that out to its end and see how that worked out, and then jump from that timeline back into this timeline, right into this point in time right now that I'm talking. And you can do that ad infinitum.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I thought we didn't have control before, but even if we did and we could do that time warpy thing, I
It's
mean,
kind of like taking a god's eye view of your life
well, it's
and being
becoming
able to dive
immortal
into the.
and omniscient at the same
Well,
time.
you wouldn't have control over the people you interact with, of course. You only have control in the sense of being able to hop in and out of your self in that timeline.
But okay, but I mean, yeah, like I could still say, okay, I'm gonna live everything the same way, except like I'm gonna meet the same people, I'm gonna do the things that I love remembering doing, but I'm also gonna start taking cooking classes. But then you get to like 29 again, and you're like, man, I really would love to have had like a history as an acrobatics person. So then can you go back and then collect that skill as well? And then at 29 again, you're like, I should have been a cobbler because I hate paying this much for shoe. And like you just keep leveling up.
You
Well, I
may
think
have to drop the knowledge you gain from different timelines.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
not
and
worth it.
all those possibilities exist at once. So it's not like you'd have to relive 29 all over again. You can literally just jump to a different, thread and be 29 and an acrobat.
I feel like we could talk about this one scenario for the whole show tonight. Don't slow down on my part. I'm kind of like, ooh, what about this and that? But
No, it's
it's good
completely fine.
stuff.
We
Yeah.
gotta. That's how we have to. That's how we should approach this, because we're gonna get more into like I guess the math part of it and building the actual dimensions. But yeah, no, you would just jump from thread to thread to wherever, but you may not meet the same people because people are living their own lives on their own thread. And they may not necessarily interact or intersect with this thread or vector, if you want to call it too, if you see life as a vector. You may not come across all the same people, but you can definitely jump around and experience a bunch of different things.
But a love story in such a world would be really beautiful, right? Because if you can both rewind and you keep finding ways to find each other, aw, that's
Oh,
nice.
geez. Just wait a minute.
No. So, too, like, what if you found the same soul, but it was a different person? Because the same essence is entangled just in a different body. Would that be the same person? Would you be the same person?
I feel like there's 12 different ways that could play out.
I mean, like you would be an iteration of the person, right? Or the iteration or an expression of your soul. You're not necessarily like, say, in my case, if there was another, me out there in a multiverse, it would be, I would think, an expression of my soul, of infinite possibilities of the universe, and playing out just a different life entirely. But I don't know if you can call it the same person. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, that's something that's kind of been, like banging around in my head for a long time, especially when you think of like technology and boosting immortality and things like that, and downloading yourself into a computer. Like, that's not really you. It's an iteration of you. But I don't know. But even with the technology, that kind of skews it one more level, I think. But if this was just like a multiverse sort of thing, then like it is you. It's an expression of you, but it's probably its own thing as well. Because you can't necessarily think that like I don't know if it works like Jet Li's The One, where it's like, you can jump universes and just start killing yourself to gain all the powers. But I mean, like, it
Well,
would seem to me that it would be useful for every iteration of your soul to have their own autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
It may be useful, but it may be connected to like this core thing. So like you would jump to let's say Ayla would jump to Acrobat Ayla, but her name's not Ayla, and she doesn't look like Ayla. And in that universe, your name is not Nick, and you don't look like you.
Right.
But
Yeah, he'd be a lion tamer, but like a nice one.
A nice one. I don't think any of them are nice.
No,
It kind of reminds me
the
of
guy
Cloud
in
Atlas.
A little bit.
Cloud Atlas, the Wachowski siblings movie.
I had to read that book in high school, so I data wiped it from my memory. And
yeah, good.
For the movie. 900 pages.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's a tome. But what happens in Cloud Atlas?
Well, it's sort of that sort of motif where it's like the same actors, so they're all like the movie is a series of vignettes, and how basically you have this core group of people that each vignette is a sort of like expression of their everlasting soul throughout the ages, and incarnations, if you will. And so I kind of see it as that, where it's like, Tom Hanks's character is still himself throughout all of these iterations, but he looks different in each one. He might be, a totally different name, different background, different everything, different surrounding people. So yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that. And I think that's where, you get like the concept of past life and reincarnation and stuff.
Yeah. You still hold the idea of like ancient Greek soulmates as well, right? But they just look different. So
yeah.
So is this becoming more clear or just far more confusing?
I'm clear. I think Ayla is
No,
fine.
I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see where this
She's
goes.
just imagines Nick as a lion tamer. That's the only
Yeah,
thing.
right.
I did get a little distracted.
Oh boy.
There's a deep V situation. Puff sleeve.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like, in this scenario, well, it's actually, there's a Commander Riker episode where he's on this planet where women rule the world, like that world, and they have him put this outfit on to please them, and it's just a funny episode, and that's where my mind went.
So do all humans just like cleavage?
I mean, that was the assumption in this episode for sure.
We like to see the heart.
There it is.
No.
You do like to see
That's
the
what it
heart.
is.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Just so
Alright,
happens that there's other things right in front of the heart.
That's true. For good reasons, I hope it protects your heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully. So, so we're all fine with like X, Y, and Z, right? Or as far as starting to build out a point in existence, like a longitude, latitude, and an altitude, right? We
Mhm.
just call it those things.
Mhm.
We're all copacetic there.
Yeah, height, width, depth.
Perfect. And now we're going to throw in this fourth component called time. And at any point in time, you can only be at one X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
All right. You can maybe change that time around, but typically only at one point. Are we all good there too?
Yep.
Mhm.
So now we're at 4 dimensions. And for this 5th dimension, I want to add in this decision-making dimension. Yes or no. Just a binary thing. Something that you can either has the range of like 0 to 1, or might be easier to put it -1 to 1, with 0 being, I don't know, you do nothing.
Potpourri.
You let somebody else pick you. Yeah.
Miscellaneous.
Yeah. And so now we've kind of hit this 5th dimension where you can move anywhere in time, but you can move anywhere, but you are kind of stuck at one specific point, and you would be in the 5th dimension, not being able to hold on to it, right? Like some sort of like not an object, but you would be able to see all these timelines happening all at once.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of like, do you remember spirographs?
Yeah.
So if you use yourself as a little pen head and the line is your life, like the 5th dimension is like when the spirograph is complete and you could see all the pathways interlocking and weaving with each other to completely make this like sort of mandala.
Yeah.
And then being able to just kind of like zoom in on one of those intersections, those little cross points between the lines.
Correct. Are we cool there? But only too, you can start to shape the entirety of your life in a way. It becomes like this giant space, so to say, to use a linear algebra term. Like you can explore all the various different points of your life, all the various threads, see how they all interact in a mandala type thing. But then you can also have these planar shapes where you can cut them and be like, this is the decision of me becoming or getting my computer science degree, and then this is the shape of my life if I became or went to Cordon Bleu, I guess. What good cooking schools are there?
Yeah,
Anybody
Cordon
know?
Bleu is good. Yeah.
Is that a good one?
The
And then
sorbonne is good.
I wouldn't know. But now you have 2 completely different shapes of your life that you'd be able to see from a 5th dimension point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea too. I mean, like, so perhaps it's more like creating a spirograph maze, you know, and with an infinite amount of, routes that you can take to go through it. Yeah. It's cool imagery. It's very poetic, I think.
Well, the question becomes too, is it countable infinite or uncountable infinite? And like
I think it
true
would have to
infinite.
be. I think it'd have to be. I mean, it depends on whether you're attached to another universe or not. But if we're in one universe, if this is just the universe, then it's got to be a smaller infinite than the larger infinite. So, yeah, it's got to be something at least quasi infinite, but less infinite than the infinity of the universe.
Yeah, so you can count it. You can count
Yeah.
it from like 1 to infinity, just using integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah blah blah. You can
Mm.
count all of them, all of your
Mhm.
lives.
Yeah.
But then you compare that to like the true infinite of everybody else's lives, the
Mhm.
cardinality of all the humans' lives, and I guess animals too.
Yeah.
Right, so you have a smaller set of infinity, a larger set of infinity, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So now taking Ayla's idea of a love story, imagine those two shapes colliding together and then forming their own vector. Or
Mhm.
forming their own shape.
Oh my
Which
God.
creates more infinities.
Did you just kill the idea of like twin flames? Because it
No,
couldn't intersect on the same points every time.
it would be on different points for different
Yeah, which means
lives.
it would cross other points too. That's sad. I guess we just have to deal with soulmates. I loved the concept of a good twin flame, but dang.
What's a twin flame?
Oh, it's it's just the thing that one of my friends and I talk about. So like there's soulmates, right? But your friend could be a soulmate, your parent could be a soulmate. You could meet somebody and like have a before sunset movie moment and like that's a soulmate. But you're not like, destined souls. A twin flame, however, is the destined soul. But I think even in those like you know, what Instagram memes and articles on Elephant Journal or whatever, they always concede that you're not always with your twin flame. So I think it's just like a soulmate 2.0 for those who soulmates aren't good enough.
But then you
They
would
want the
even
next
have a
thing.
subset of infinite twin flames.
They
Yep.
would.
Where
Mhm.
those would actually happen, where they would intersect.
Say that one more time.
You would have a subset of maybe one twin flame, or probably multiple, probably countable infinite, where your lives did come together.
Hmm.
It would
You
just
still have
be
an
like,
infinite grab bag of situations where you could choose that
Yeah,
one person.
totally. But
it's
it's not
just
like you're
small.
not the
Right.
same exact entity inhabiting the same space at every point. So yeah, I mean like that. I mean that's what I'm saying is like that concept doesn't hold up in that like line of thinking.
I don't know. I think it does.
You think so?
Yeah.
Have to mull this over. Mulling.
So are you?
What I did like though was Nick's point about like measuring it. Like I think you would need to invent a new way to measure that fifth dimension, like we have tools to measure the others.
Yeah, I don't think that you could measure it because fifth dimension would be technically outside of any measurement of time. You'd have to escape the time dimension in order to be in the fifth dimension.
And then you would create the form of measurement that would appropriately
Yeah,
go with
I
that. Yeah,
suppose.
it's like imagine staplers
we'll
never
we'll
existed.
call it
Poof. It's this new tool that actually does work.
slime.
You call
That'll
it
be
slime.
that'll be the measurement for the fifth dimension.
No, these are just
The
like
time knife.
pure.
Yeah, the time knife.
These are just pure math models. Just good old pure mathematics. Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
they are starting to find ways to measure indirectly the fifth dimension in a quantum sense.
Those
If you
gammas.
if you fall into like string theory thought, which I think is still just theory for the most
Mm.
part. Like,
Yeah.
basically these dimensions. In some theories, there's like 27 or 28 different dimensions that make up our whole universe. They're just so small that you can't see them. Something like down to 10 to the negative 33. So it'd be point
Oh, yes.
33 zeros and then a 1. So it's really tiny, that,
tiny pocket dimension.
with a little particle going up and down.
Yeah.
All the
That
way.
little particle is the you've never seen The Good Place, have you?
No.
So that little particle, for those people who have seen The Good Place, it's the dot over the I on Jeremy Bearimy.
Yes.
so there's this joke in The Good Place. So it's about like the afterlife and stuff. And one of the characters, Michael, is telling the mortals about how time exists. And so he tries to he draws it on a whiteboard, and it looks like a signature of the name Jeremy Bearimy, but he's like, this is what time looks like in the fifth dimension. And then one of the characters is like, what is the dot over the I? And he's like, oh, that's the time knife. And it's just like, this guy is like an ethical philosopher, so he's like freaking out over the concept of what the dot over the I means, because it's totally separate from the rest of time.
Oh my god.
The signature is like a contour signature, so it's all connected. It's just
Right.
this floating dot. It's a great show. I thought
It
it
is
was
a very
really
good
well
show.
thought out. It's super fun.
Is The Good Place the good place?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
comment.
Technically it is. Yeah, you can say that it is.
But yeah, no, we're starting to like that's the way, like, I guess the fifth dimensions are being shaped out, and it becomes this kind of thought experiment.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, that you, as like during my course of computer science study, we ended up playing with n-dimensional spaces, and you have to reduce in one step you have to reduce the dimensionality. It goes into like machine learning problems, but to view life and every decision you have as like this weird string, this weird line in this fifth dimensional space has always been fun to think about. Kind of scary.
It's like Lucy. Remember that movie with the ScarJo?
Is this the Morgan Freeman meme again?
What's the meme?
Imagine you can only use 10% of your mind.
I like to think of it as was it Men in Black 3?
Limitless?
No, Men in Black 3, where they have a fifth dimensional being. He's like, this might be the timeline where this happens, or it might be the timeline that happens, or it could be the timeline where this other thing happens.
Just forever.
Yeah, and he's like, oh no, it's actually this other timeline. Woo!
So isn't it funny how the fifth dimension kind of mimics the concept of just immediacy and being present? You know, like it's like the concept of the fifth dimension is like, oh, I can see all these outcomes of things that are happening, but it's like those are things that could happen. But if you're just present as well, you're kind of operating in that space of potentiality in a small, minute way, not exactly the same, but I think it might be it's an interesting exercise in the exploration of potentiality.
Yeah, it's extremely localized, which would kind of start to give it credence that it does exist as something that can be measured. Right?
Yeah,
and
maybe
this could be where like intuition comes from, some connection to a higher power, as we call it, or to the logos, the thing that flows through everything, right? Which also would be God.
You want to hear something crazy along those lines?
Sure.
Okay. I was actually waiting for you to say sure. Normally, I would just plow through and be like, so I'm going to tell it to you anyway.
What if he said no?
I was listening for the no. I know we're on live. We've got a strict schedule, and he's just,
I'm just happy that my positive reinforcement has been working. So continue.
Wait a minute. What's that? We're going to circle back to that post show. But no, I heard this crazy story about a double homicide in Colorado, I think. And so it was a husband and wife that were shot to death. Now, before it happened, the mother had a nightmare that her son was going to be murdered. And it happened the way that she dreamed it. The weird thing is that the person that killed the two people was also having nightmares about the same thing.
Yeah, I would definitely like to get into a synchronicity conversation at some point. I think that'll be a pretty good one, because there's just some weird things.
Which, could be kind of maybe explained by weird fifth dimensional, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah.
crossovers or something like that.
Well, I've always wondered if, like, during our dreams, when you are like processing all the people you've seen throughout the day or whatever, those people are having the same exact dreams and they're kind of meeting up in this quantum realm, in this fifth dimension space. And that's where you get to interact. That's where you get to cross or see the intersection played out.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know,
Sleeping Beauty.
What?
I know
Sleeping
you.
Beauty.
I've seen you once before in a dream or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I don't know that scene. You got me.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear me sing it.
Uh,
Very like, what is it? Soprano singing role.
well,
That's
yeah,
fine. We can
even
auto tune it. Disney will
yeah.
make it happen.
No.
Well, even even in our in our talks that we've done about astral projection and stuff like that and the fabric of the universe, I think there is something to even in our dream conversations. I think there's something to be said about these realms and how they interact with us, and perhaps the fifth dimension is something like an astral plane, in which you can tap, the infinite knowledge of everything, and perhaps people just inadvertently get these downloads sometimes, whether it's through a dream or a premonition or like a feeling. I think it's definitely possible for people to kind of like inadvertently download some information from that dimension.
Well, you would definitely need to reduce the dimension to something that could be felt or seen or observed in some way in this dimension, because you couldn't take the whole
Right.
totality of the message, right?
Yeah, it would just have to be a very specific instance, like there's like Ayla said, there's somebody dreaming of their child being harmed. Like that's, to me, that's like, oh, perhaps this person was in touch with the the sort of probability part of the fifth dimension and was able to witness a probability. And sometimes, and like we have dreams that don't come true, perhaps those were just probabilities that did come true somewhere else.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But what about all those
Which
dreams
sucks.
when people cheated on people in dreams?
Right,
Woke up all
right.
angry.
Yeah, totally.
Somewhere you are not my twin flame.
You're just in the doghouse.
I've totally done that to Nick. I think there were like 2 times.
That's like the classic meme. It's like, like the girl's like mad in bed and the guy's like doing the "what did I do" thing. And it's like when you cheat on your girlfriend in her dreams.
The worst one though, there was one where you were sitting at a table and you looked me dead in the eye and then you made out with the person while you were still looking at me.
Cold-blooded.
Wow.
Damn, that's a
That's
move
a
right
twist,
there.
yeah.
That's such a Chad move.
Our dynamic.
Totally.
Parallel
Did I
universes.
pee on the ground after that too to mark my
God,
territory?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't
Jesus.
know. I was like in so much wounded pain. I don't remember. But you know what I do think is weird? So I remember having a dream one time that my parents were buying coffins for me. And like I've had to try on these different coffins. And I got stuck in one of them and I come out of it and I look to the right and there's all these coffins full of dead people. And then they like look at me and it was like a nightmare. I was super scared. So one of the things my mom does, like she would burn sage and say a prayer if you had a bad dream. But once you do that, like if it's a certain, there's like levels of prayers, and if you do like the super duper level,
And if you don't pray strong enough, the monsters will get you.
no, you just can't
I'm
go to
kidding.
bed until noon. So we had time to kill. And anyway, we're driving to our destination and we get a really bad car accident. And I remember thinking, even at that young age, did the dream predict that something bad was going to happen? Did the prayer cancel that out? Is there no correlation? Would the accident not have happened if I hadn't had the right? Like, so I just remember like at a very young age thinking about like fate, destiny, power of prayer, intentionality, manifestation, like all these different like weird kind of
Yeah.
fifth dimensional things, right? Because if you are tapping into something, and this is why I don't like that original question you said, which is where you can see what everything will lead to. I don't know how you could leave your home. I mean, unless you had absolute control over how everything played
Yeah,
out,
you
and,
get to
like, you knew
choose. You
yourself
do.
well enough to know what you want.
No,
Yeah,
no, no. You get to take a God's eye view of your life and then just dive into the thing that you want to explore, babe. You don't have to like sit there and choose to make one decision. You could just go experiment and explore and then leave decisions whenever you wanted to.
I think
But
in that
everything may not
reality,
play
yeah,
out
I would
well,
just
though.
be on a mountaintop meditating the whole time. I would never do a thing.
It's just too much, just overwhelming.
Mhm.
You see that? Well,
And then you could then you find out that you just jumped into a reality where you sit on mountaintops.
it's true.
I'm like, "Damn it.
You can't escape it. It's the time knife.
Jeremy, bury me."
Which mathematically works too, because you're stuck in this space. You can't get out of the space. Once you're in the
Mhm.
box, you're in the box.
Yeah,
What's in the
totally.
box?
The box. So, like,
Great movie.
no, it is a great movie. It's 7, by the way. And
Yes,
they
yes,
never
we're
show
old.
it.
That's an old movie now.
Is it? It's like 20 years. I don't know. I just watched it in the movie theater. I jumped from the fifth dimension back over there and came back here. So
Nice.
still
Okay.
new to me. No,
The fifth dimension still has movie theaters open, huh? I'm
Yeah.
jealous.
right? Don't you wish you could go to it?
Yes.
My 2 shares of AMC wishes that they'd be open.
Hey, they went up today, all right?
They did.
Could
yeah.
you
Oh, did they?
Could you imagine a fifth dimensional movie where like you see every possible edit
That'd be
every
amazing. That's the
possible
Zack
director?
Snyder
You're so
cut
hot.
of Justice League.
Yeah.
That's the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. He's literally making a fifth dimensional movie where he shows you everything that ever happened during the making of that movie.
And the original theatrical cut in there.
Yeah, totally.
Man.
Be pretty hardcore. But
Did you say
No,
hardcore
but
or did you say parkour? No, I'm just kidding.
hardcore.
I was walking my dog today and I was amping her up by going parkour and like running, and she was about it. So
She's gone crazy.
whatever. She loved it.
Just nudging that reality a little bit. That vector a little bit over.
Yes. I guess, if I could go back, I would learn parkour. Looks cool.
Some free
You
running.
don't have to go back. You could just jump to a thread
try to
of
learn it
time
now.
where you know it. It's like being in the Matrix, and you can jump into any part of your life or any potentiality.
Wait. So like, okay, wait. So
You wouldn't
what
have to
you're saying is-
learn parkour. You could just jump to an instance in which you know parkour.
And then you could be like, I know
a different
parkour.
reality.
Yeah.
Wait, so like I could just be like, okay, so I could say, "Excuse me, gentlemen, 2 minutes," and then I'd come back and I'd
Okay,
be
if
like,
the amalgamation of
I
your
know
life was a
parkour.
pool of, if you look at your life, if you took made your life like a flat circle, and each little pixel was a universe that you could, inhabit,
Mhm.
you would just find the pixel that you are a parkour, expert, and
But do I have
go
to
into that
live-
one.
Oh, okay.
No,
I go
because when you're in the
into that.
control of when you're in control of the
necessarily
fifth dimension, you can freely move between. You don't have to just stay in it. You can always go out.
Yeah, but then what if in that reality they don't, I don't know, have Cheetos or something like that? Like
Then you go to a reality that does. My goodness.
there's Cheetos and parkour.
But if you eat Cheetos,
Like,
you might
you
not
can
be in
keep
good enough
whittling it
shape to
down.
be an expert parkour
Yeah,
person.
probably not.
The
Probably.
entity you jump into may hate Cheetos.
Mhm.
But ex-
Right. But yeah, but how is it still? Okay, quick sidebar. For anybody listening out there, do comment and let us know if my constant questioning is helpful or if it's just distracting from the whole like thing. Because I'm like, I just love these kinds of thought experiments, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Probably too much so, but anyway.
Or there might be a universe where Cheetos exist, you love them, you're a parkour expert, but your
And you
overindulgence
understand this conversation.
and your overindulgence in Cheetos had you parkouring into a
Beep,
wall.
beep, beep, beep,
Right.
Nick, I censored myself. You don't know my life. Inside joke.
Oh, the fifth dimension. But yeah, no. That's just kind of a fun little thought experiment, I guess.
Mhm.
has Ayla questioning everything and afraid
Yeah.
to move.
Well, I'm trying to think if there's a world where I do parkour, I hate Cheetos, I'm not necessarily friends with you because I can't control
There
that. Like,
is.
how is
It's
that me? And then
infinite
what happened to me that
potential.
was inhabiting that me? Do we switch places? Or do I just cease to like, or I
You
guess I
see
would
it
have always
happening.
been the same thing. So really it's just I can go into my soul
Yeah, it's not a
and then
different universe. It's your
burst
life
out into
over
other.
eternity. It's your life
Mm,
over the eternity of infinite possibility. So
Your soul's life.
yeah, you're not
okay.
necessarily going into a different universe each and every time. Like you're
But
looking at your life as a collection of possibilities and then just diving into the possibilities that you like. And
because
there
of
would
the
be a possibility where you're an acrobat, you hate Cheetos, and you get this conversation. You can jump into it, you know?
But
but in that conversation where I do get it,
Yeah.
would I be asking if the acknowledgement and existence of a soul is necessary for this discussion, right? I
That's
mean,
a
because
good
if it's
question.
all math, like, does that then lead to the existence of a soul, which is really just this ethergenic energy that's out there, not Jet
we're
Li one, but just absorbing experiences?
we're
Or is
now
it again?
applying mathematics, but you have to start from somewhere. There has to be a point. In order for you to have a vector, you have to have a point somewhere, and that point in the beginning would be your quote unquote soul. That's what we can call the point. The point itself is described by a 5 component tuple or a 5 tuple. Your X, Y, Z, time, and then the decision made in this point. Parkour, or it's actually a decision vector now. Now we're getting more into like deep learning type stuff. But if you like parkour slash acrobatics, you hate uh, Cheetos, and you understand this conversation. So the soul is just the origin point of whatever of yourself across all possible times through
I
all
see what
possible
you're saying.
lives.
It's
Yeah,
a
the soul is
linguistic.
minus you, is you minus experience.
Well, no, it's a linguistic placeholder like X. We're
Yeah,
calling it a soul, but mathematically it's just X, whatever it is, and that thing's experiencing all these different things. That makes sense.
and it's moving because you have to slide this thing around in this 5 dimensional space.
Okay.
Now, is this a simulation? Does that mean all of our lives are
Yes.
simulations and all the dreams that we have are all simulations? So just seeing
Yes.
different parts of the different simulations that are happening concurrently.
Yeah, that's
It's quite
yeah.
possible. It's quite
No, yeah,
possible.
yeah.
I mean, because like we've been playing this VR, the Oculus Quest 2, which is fabulous. I highly recommend it. What does Mike say? 10 out of 10.
10 out of
Uh,
10.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
it again?
yeah. But it's weird because you realize how dominated, like my sight dominates so much about what I understand in my world and my depth perception, my movement. And then you get rid of that and it's like so your visual information is being like put upon. There's sound. You just get really immersed. There have been times where like my heart's racing. It's like, dude, this is just a game, but my brain is like just wired to do what it does,
Oh
like a
yeah.
machine.
I was playing paintball just a little while ago against some 10-year-olds, and it was a capture the flag game, and I came in clutch with the scoring goal with 1 second to go. And I swear to
Mm.
God, my heart was racing like I had run a mile. Like it was just
The
going out of my
adrenaline.
chest. I was like, all the adrenaline just dumped at that moment. As I'm just like crouching in my living room, like with my goggles on, going, go, 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 go. Got to get the flag to the base.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I played some like pretty competitive soccer growing up. There was AOS and then League, and League you had to pay for and like
Mm.
go on trips and all that. I've never had a bigger adrenaline dump than when I was playing competitive Counter Strike, which is a video
Mm-hmm.
game.
Oh, yeah.
Except, it's just all visual. Like
Mhm.
you can disconnect your whole body and you're just focused on that one stimuli.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
FPSs are so fucking hectic. It's crazy.
So much
What
fun.
FPS?
First person shooter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and like the super hot game. I can't tell you how many times I've run into a table, literally trying to escape my life, and then I'm out of my grid. And even the grid itself, you can see it's a three-dimensional space that then gets filled with graphics and things like that. But like there's some where you can sit in a meadow and it's weird. It's almost like I can almost smell the meadow, and my whole nervous system just like relaxes as if I just went to Yosemite or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely doing brain hacking because your brain can't tell the difference. Like your brain doesn't know that you're in a virtual reality simulation. It's giving you all the dopamine responses that it would if this was a real life situation.
Mhm. And what's interesting is up at Stanford, they have something called the Huberman Lab, which is all about like the way that our our brain and our eyes interact with one another. So there's a lot of like information about like focusing where your eyesight focuses informs the way that your brain focuses or something like that. Like he has podcasts and things like that. And I've only heard tangential stories about it, but from what I've heard, we could totally do a whole episode on just um
Eye movement and cognition.
yeah, or like sensory perceptions and stuff like that. Cause yeah, I mean, when you start thinking about it, I mean, you can totally inhabit this world without sight. You adapt. And so it's like if you start kind of peeling away the layers, it's like,
You see without seeing.
yeah, like everything has meaning and everything is meaningless, so
Yeah.
for what
Well,
that's worth.
no, it is. It's cool. Everything is nothing and nothing's everything. But
Mhm.
so there's also some studies that have been done on films that track eyes, like eye movement, which I find really
Mhm.
fascinating as like from the audience member point of view, because there could be stuff happening in the frame that you have no idea about because you're focused on the character or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and even
Uh,
like, oh, go ahead.
no, go for it. Because I
Well,
was going to switch gears and talk about angels and demons in the fifth dimension.
oh, no, that's good actually, because so I remember I was doing a play ages ago, and it was gosh, it wasn't a horror play, but there was a scene where something was meant to be frightening, and the director was explaining how in a society where you're used to reading like left to right, your brain associates like a calm activity, like everything moves left to right. That's how your brain orders things. So if something suddenly moves right to left and it's coming from like downstage to upstage, so it's like coming at you in a diagonal pattern, even though it's not at you but it's on the stage, it's an unexpected trajectory that your brain doesn't like, and it primes you to be a little bit more fearful in that moment. So you add loud sounds and scary costuming, and um, it would just be scarier than like something else.
I wonder if that
So
still has an effect on cultures that read left to right.
I
I mean,
think
right to left.
right.
Hmm.
Mhm. I think they just like
Right to left,
alter
yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah, I think you could probably say that they'd alter it if that does have an impact on the brain. There's lots of things like, have you ever noticed like trains usually run left to right?
What?
I've never seen a train going in the left direction. They are always going to the right.
What?
Is that just me?
That's just you sitting.
Yeah, that's where you're
Okay.
positioned looking at the train.
You're intuitively trying to be calm all the time, so you're just
Maybe,
framing the
maybe.
train in the right way. No,
Well,
because I
okay,
definitely see trains go right to. But I wonder if you
yeah.
move the camera in the opposite direction, if you just scare everyone, all the cultures. You have
I
action moving right to left, and then
Right. Yeah,
you
exactly.
cross the line with the camera going left to right.
Well, and I think in Japan, there's a word for the study of movement as it relates to horror. So, like, I think you saw that in The Grudge or The Ring or something, where it's that something's coming at you, but the movement's jerky.
Hmm.
So it's like accelerate, stop, and that's very like unsettling. But that movie technique originates from something else, which I can't remember if it's like from anime or if it's just like some subculture thing. But
Probably stop motion.
Or stage plays.
like, oh, maybe I'll Google it and see if I can.
A really good this is another sidebar, another good Japanese horror movie. The Audition came out in the early 90s. Only seen it once, but probably one of the most terrifying films I ever watched when I was really getting into it. Like, I think I saw it when I was like 17 and I didn't sleep for like 2 days. 'Cause, yeah,
What was it called?
The Audition. So it's about this guy who's really wow. It's about this guy who's looking for a wife, but has a series, but it's playing it under a series of auditions, and the person he chooses may not have been the best choice, and horror ensues from there. But there's a scene with a bag that's just it. I would have to imagine it incorporates that motion and horror uh, study into it because it's like I'm visualizing it now in my head, and it's just but great movie. Call the Audition, worth watching if you want to be scared for a couple days.
All right.
Cool.
I've been thinking about wanting to watch horror films. I have like a 3-month stint, and then I need like 9 months of Disney and The Office.
So I'm gonna try to pull stuff now from the second dimension or 3 dimensions shoved into 2 and pull it back up to the 5th dimension. All right.
Okay.
So we have like subatomic particles, right? That we can only see using Large Hadron Colliders, and in theory, this gives us some sort of measurement of some sort of higher dimension. And that necessarily doesn't mean that we don't have beings that exist in the 5th dimension that could influence humans in lower dimensions, because we influence each other all the time, right? As we talked about with our like marketing and propaganda type stuff. And it's like, for me, sometimes I wonder if my thoughts come from me, and the whole notion of consciousness and where like it's just electrical impulses, which also implies subatomic particles are happening, stuff's going on. So I wonder like if there are a set of 5th dimensional beings that we could call angels or demons that will influence lower dimensional beings. Like imagine or even matter. So like whenever you see videos of ghosts, I always think of that as like 5th dimensional teenagers messing with the lower dimensions. And then they get in trouble for it. So that's why you don't see it as often. It might be like some law, like some Star Trek type prime directive thing where it's like, you're not allowed to mess with the lower dimensions.
I'm for it.
Well, and part of me wonders too is like if so like if we can take it from the 5th dimension and just apply it to us, say, look at us, we make a 2-dimensional character on a piece of paper. That 2-dimensional character has no awareness that we exist. Even if it were to have sentience, it wouldn't know that we're there. It wouldn't be able to perceive it. So I mean, yeah, it's entirely possible there are entities in the 5th dimension that we just have no way of actually seeing. That could very well be animating our lives, for lack of a better simile.
All right. Well, there's like we also know that like information can be carried on light, right? And light plays a big part of the fabric of our reality. So what if there's some stuff happening too, some messages being sent through light? And that also, go alongside with religious texts too, or just other like color therapy and things like that. But that's the way out there reach.
Yeah, it's kind of like you remember those overhead projectors, like the ones from school?
Yeah.
It's kind of like our dimension is the little thin piece of plastic that projects the image onto the wall, but that the 5th dimension is actually the projected image. So like if you're to inhabit the little cellophane piece that has all of the information on it, you wouldn't be necessarily aware of the entirety of the information. But if you were able to look at it through the projector's sort of perspective, then you would be able to see it in its entirety.
Yeah. And then another kind of idea that correlates with this. Have you seen a movie called Funny Games?
It sounds familiar. I haven't seen it.
Horror movie, 2 different versions. There's a European version and an American version. Start with the American, go to the European. But it kind of, there's an idea in it where these 2 characters are having a conversation that every time someone makes a movie, they're actually making a reality. And in that reality, the things actually happen because the characters in the movie have no idea it's a movie. To them, it's real.
Yeah, what a nightmare would that be if all of the things that we thought of and imagined actually became reality?
You're right. Or we're just channeling something, getting something from some other reality where it's actually going down, and then make it into our entertainment.
Weird. There's a Will Ferrell movie about that. Actually, it's like there's
Stranger
an
Than Fiction.
Yes, such a good film. And like this writer's writing, and he suddenly hears her voice in his head, and like she's narrating like everything he's doing. It's like a detective hunt to try to figure out what type of book he's in. It's good. It's good stuff.
There's also a God, that good always throws me off. There's a Marvel universe too that corresponds to our universe, where all of the Marvel characters realize that they're just comic book characters, of course, but there's this collision between 2 of the worlds that are pretty cool. These ideas are still all work within this 5-dimensional space that we started an hour ago describing. Where your lives are also in it. So who knows? You might be superheroes in some other one.
That'd be interesting. Again, a lot of pressure. I'd be a superhero on a mountain. No, I'm just kidding. By the way, the movement thing I was referring to, it's called Butoh. I think that's how you say it. And it's like a type of avant-garde theater from post-war Japan that uses contortion, body paint, and expressive, uncanny movements to create intense performances, often relating to taboo subject matter.
Wow. Butoh?
Butoh. Yeah. And I think, so I was in like a discussion with choreographers 2 weeks ago, just talking about like art and dance and what it is to choreograph. And it just opened up a lot of like new thoughts. Cause like we're talking about this 5th dimension stuff. A lot of it, you're right. It's decision, it's movement, it's time, it's bodies moving through space. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. Cause when you think about it, like if we were aliens observing humans, I think that one of the more curious behaviors would be dance. Like, especially dance that's not like mating ritual motivated. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you have to express a message through only movement. There's no talking in dance. Like you're constraining yourself to that one form, moving through time. So in a 5th dimension point, it might not even be conceived. You would have to drop yourself into the 4th dimension just to probably make sense of it. So it would just look like cells of animation on a piece of paper, I would imagine, or on our 5th dimensional projector.
Yeah. I'm loving these analogies. It's really helping me, like, because 5th dimension, I've always like understood it, and then a day later, I'm like, what? Just forget right away.
These things aren't easy to visualize. They're very difficult to visualize, and even graduate students, postgraduate computer scientists have like some of the tasks are to reduce these dimensions because it becomes n-ary. It becomes like, try to imagine a 77-dimensional space. Like, try to imagine a 200-dimensional space. It was like, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, that was a great conversation. But before we go, I wanted to posit this to you because I didn't know if you were going to get into this. But I've always thought not always thought, but I've definitely had thoughts about this before and about the fifth dimension. And I think the closest thing that we have to the fifth dimension, and this is kind of piggybacking on our interstellar talk, but I think the closest thing that we have as a representation of the fifth dimension would be love. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things about love, is because it traverses all possibilities, it traverses all potentialities, and it traverses all of time.
Oh, Nick.
What?
Sorry, no. I'm over here welling up with eyes.
Oh yeah, but
some
it's true.
animated
I really do. I really do believe it's true. I think that that's one thing that we can kind of look at and say, you know, the person that you love, you would love them in all instances and iterations over across, you know, all amounts of time. And that's kind of how you can maybe bring the fifth dimension down a little bit to not necessarily grasp it, because it doesn't illustrate the fifth dimension enough, but to have an actual sort of like tangible feeling. I think that operating in the fifth dimension, definitely you have to utilize love as much as possible.
Yeah. But what about the dark side of it? What about unrequited love? Because there's a dual. You always have duals in these spaces. Yeah, positive.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you can't use love for that as well. You know, like I unrequited love is still love that's just not felt from the other side, right? So
I've always thought that you can definitely love something with it not be,
loving you back, of course.
Yeah,
of
like
course
a
you can.
rose. You can love a rose, or your neighbor's dog. You're just like, I love that dog.
Yeah, so and I think that there's something, you know, like the time knife of love is that it's a, you know, balancing act between joy and tragedy, right? And so it's very easy to dip into the tragic as well with love, as it is the joyous.
No, of course. I just want to bring out the full span of the infinite space that we're talking about. That's all.
Definitely.
It's a, I would say it's quite a romantic idea, because, you know, romanticism is like I'm talking, yeah, you love the thing no matter what, no matter what it is, no matter the outcome. And,
yeah,
you know,
and you can love something that destroys you, and you can love
Exactly.
something that's terrible for you, and you know that hurts you.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
Like
the
drugs,
operative
you know.
word
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
choose.
Yeah.
You said you would choose to love them throughout space and time. So it could be unrequited. You just keep choosing to love the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can love something that's not good for you, you know, and you can still get pleasure out of that too. You know, but that's just a different question. That's a totally different topic. So,
Man, that's one masochistic fifth dimensional being. So
right.
I just want to pick all the worst things.
All the most painful memories. Hey, look, some people love the pain, right? Some people want to talk about. I think Ayla shared that Michelle Gondry interview about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Michelle Gondry, the director, chose Jim Carrey for that movie because he had just gotten out of a breakup, and he told Jim Carrey something along the lines of, I don't want you to get better. You're so beautiful right now. And, you know, like it's a kind of a dick thing to say to somebody who's in pain, but there's some truth to that. There's a truth and a beauty to the pain that we feel, especially the pain that love brings. And, you know, I think
I would agree. Great. Like a big part of me loves my depression, because it reaches so low, it gets so down in the depths that so few people can have, that I can cherish it because it's something unique. Just like I'm sure the peaks that I have, the few people might only be able to grasp at that. So it's the same thing, right? It's this.
And that's where all the treasure is, right?
Yeah,
it's at the bottom of the abyss.
It's where the aliens are.
Yeah, that too. That too. But it really is. I mean, like, you know, the depths of the underworld is where the hero gets the treasure and brings it back. So I mean, like, it's definitely a part of it. You know,
I mean, you know how much I enjoy Hades.
Right. Exactly.
Dogs are great.
Really that
yes,
bad
they
of a
are.
guy?
No, he was fine. He was fine. He was probably the least problematic out of the brothers.
Probably cool to have a book club with.
Yeah. I'm sure he's thoughtful, you know.
Well, I do think that like sometimes when I'm like in a lower state, I always feel like my ideas are so much more intense and edgy and true. But then
Yeah.
if I'm like in an upstate, I'm like not even writing anything. I'm just like
Yeah,
being,
exactly.
which
Well,
is weird.
that's why a lot of creative people like to be sad, because sadness brings creativity. It breeds creativity. It's very hard to harness creativity and joy.
Well, and I think like if Inside Out taught us anything, it's that, all emotions are necessary and valid. They
Mhm.
bring us to become who we are. So it's like, yeah, you can't really regret them too much because
No.
there's a
And
lot of beauty.
when you're creating, you're releasing energy, right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't help too much to release your joy.
Right.
It does help a lot to release that sadness, where
Absolutely.
that
That's really
creativity
well
is
said.
bred.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, well, that's well said. Well, I mean, that was a great conversation, man. Thank you. That was fun.
Mm.
Sweet.
Fun times, and we hope you enjoyed as well. If we sparked your curiosity, or if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments. We are happy to engage with you. Please consider leaving us a like and a subscription on YouTube if you feel so inclined at Exofathom. Please check us out on Friday. We'll be back. And yeah, you guys got anything else?
No.
No.
All right. Well, until next time, Cognonauts, you stay out there, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.